Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's On at DisneyPlus.com. A quick news update for you guys on the Tiana Disney Plus series being cancelled. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. So way back in 2020, Disney announced at its Investor Day event that it was going to be creating a brand new series called Tiana, which was a spin-off of Princess and the Frog. This new long-form musical comedy series was going to feature extraordinary entrepreneur who is now the princess of the Kingdom of Maldonia. The all-new adventure was set in both Maldonia and in Tiana's beloved hometown of New Orleans. Now, it's been a while since this show was initially announced. Over 5 years ago, we'd seen a few little kind of bits about it over the last couple of years at different events where they kind of showed the logo. We got like one bit of art from it. They made some major changes to the Splash Mountain attraction in Walt Disney World in Disneyland, incorporating some scenes and some characters that were supposed to be in this new series. But according to THR, it's not going to be going ahead. Disney have cancelled the show. They're not going to be moving forward with it. This is part of a bigger strategy. So that bigger strategy is basically Walt Disney Animation Studios are kind of pulling out of making series for Disney Plus. Now, this is where I've seen a lot of confusion online about this story, because this is not Disney pulling away from animated series, it's just the Walt Disney Animation Studio, which is a studio which generally just makes the big animated films. They've only really made a few shows. Baymax, Awaju, and also Zootopia Plus. Those are kind of really the only shows that they've worked on so far for Disney Plus. They're just going back to focusing on major theatrical films and kind of leaving the TV side to the TV animation department, and the ones that make all the stuff for Disney Channel and Disney Plus. So I just want to make it clear again, Walt Disney Animation Studios make the films, and then they have a television department that works for Disney branded TV. They make the TV shows. That's how it's been for a while, but with the launch of Disney Plus, much like what we saw with Pixar, Marvel and Lucasfilm, they started getting in on the action as well. Well, those shows haven't really performed as well as they'd like. There's a lot of money going into it, a lot of expense, and they're not really seeing the results of this now. There's a couple of reasons for that, I think. I think some of the projects they've released haven't been as good as they could have been. They haven't connected, the story-wise, advertising, marketing, because Disney really doesn't put as much promotion into a series as it does into a movie, because it has no potential of going off to make $1 billion like it can with a movie. So I think that's kind of a shift back to theatrical releases for this studio, which we're seeing. Pixar's done the same. They've released a couple of series, Dream Productions and also Win or Lose. They are making any more of them. They're just going back to theatrical releases. We're still going to get the odd little short and stuff, but generally they're just focusing on the big films where they make the money. Because obviously it's not just about the movies making money, they then make the money at the theme parks, the merchandise, all this additional stuff that they can do, which generally the series don't tend to do so well. So yeah, the Tiana series has been cancelled. This is also going to result in some layoffs at the Vancouver studio that they have. They are going to be working on some other little projects. There is going to be a Tiana special. Now, whether or not, I have a feeling that this might just be maybe some elements of the series that were maybe made or maybe they've got a little far into making it and they think that there's enough there to warrant, using the assets and just finishing off that individual story, maybe a 5, 10, 15, 20 minute special. That's going to be something that's going to be happening. There was also apparently a Disney Plus animated movie that was in development for the streaming service, but that's been cancelled. We don't know what that was, what it was going to be. That's been dumped. Again, if they're making animated movies for Disney Plus, we're tending to see them more from the Disney branded side of things. Again, just refocusing back on theatrical films where they can make more money. And again, shifting away, as I say, from the long form process. Now, I think going back to the Tiana situation, this is a show that is definitely is taking a long time. I think Disney was in some ways irresponsible for announcing it so early, because fans have been waiting for it. I do think at the time that this series was probably way too early in development for them to actually officially announce it. But at the Investors Day, we can't really kind of stress and remember just how bad it was at the end of 2020. The theme parks were all closed, cinemas were closed, the world was basically shut down, and Disney was kind of trying to cling on for dear life by doing this big event for 4 hours, announcing hundreds of projects. A lot of them have come out, but there's a lot of them that haven't as well. And I think that is because they announced stuff too early. They didn't kind of continue that at Disney Plus days and D23. And they've learned their lesson. They don't do that anymore. They've really cut back on what they announce. And we've really just seem to spend the last 5 years just catching up with everything that got announced from that one. So yeah, it's not going to be happening. Now, this is kind of weird because obviously with Moana 2, that was originally actually going to be a Disney Plus series, but they thought it was sort of too good and decided to turn it into a movie about halfway through production, and that went on to make over $1 billion. So, you know, they have got evidence that that could work, but with Tiana, they've decided that they're just straight up just going to do like a Disney Plus special and kind of release what they've got coming out of it. So, yeah, we're not going to be getting a Tiana movie. They're not doing anything like that. Yeah, they're just cutting back. They're refocusing again on the big animated films for movies and for cinemas, etc. Yeah, Disney is a kind of a bit of a weird state. I've seen a lot of people talking about how, you know, we're just not getting enough big like Disney branded stuff on Disney Plus anymore. You know, we're seeing all of the different studios all pulling back. Now, obviously, I've talked about this a lot, about having, you know, when you've got all the studios putting in stuff into Disney Plus, especially internationally, you know, we get all the 20th Century, the FX, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of content coming in, maybe not as much as there used to be, but we are seeing a lot less Disney branded stuff. And I don't know if it's because these shows aren't and movies aren't connecting with audiences. You know, there's been a huge amount of comments regarding this show being cancelled, with the concept of the current situation with DEI programs in the United States, the woke issue, the whole Splash Mountain thing. There's a lot of comments about this, and you know, there is an element of the fact of, is this part of it? Is it the fact that they're looking at this going, look, these shows and movies are just not performing as well as we want, and we need to save money, and you know, these are just not working with audiences and they've just pulled the plug on it. That could very easily be part of it. I would hope after 5 years the story and stuff would have been a lot further forward and the story would have been good enough. But I do think that, you know, it would be kind of a bit crazy not to think that that could possibly be one reason. Or I think the major thing as well is maybe they just realised Tiana was not going to work and it was going to cost them a lot of money and wasn't going to bring in the viewership. They would have seen the viewership from Win or Lose, Dream Productions and other shows like that. And I just think audiences are not watching it the same way that they used to. So over the last few hours since this story originally broke, I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that, you know, Disney aren't putting out the same amount of cartoons that they used to, and it's not, you know, why aren't they releasing them? And it's not like the old days. And I think this is where, you know, we need to look at the current situation with kids shows, animation, etc. The audience today is very different than it was then, for example, when I was a kid. When we used to sit down on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons, that doesn't exist in the same format. Kids don't wait for it. You know, they're used to short form content, and this is what Disney's leaning in on. They're finding a huge amount of success with like Bluey and Spidey, and it's amazing. All the kids stuff that's for younger children is all kind of moving more towards much shorter content, because that's what audiences are responding better to. Longer form, like 20+ minute episodes, don't seem to be working. Now, there are obviously other things, you know, we're recently seeing with the Marvel shows. They can do animated shows for older kids, etc. But that audience is very different than it used to be, and kids aren't watching these kind of animated shows in the same way. You know, you could say, you know, like the content, you know, is it as good as it used to be? Probably not. I mean, the days of, you know, when I used to watch, you know, Chip and Dale, Gummy Bears, all those kind of stuff when I was a kid, we don't really have that kind of level of shows anymore, which is definitely a shame. You know, I grew up in an era where we had Thundercats and Transformers and He-Man. It was an amazing time for animation. And yeah, we are not in that zone right now. We're not having multiple shows. But toys are different. Kids don't play with toys in the same way. That used to fund all of those kind of things. And I think on the whole, we're just in a very different era. And I think there's a lot of people looking back to what it used to be, kind of expecting it to still be the same. And that's just not the case anymore. And yeah, I don't know, it's a very awkward situation with Tiana. They never should have announced it as early as they did. They should have waited until they were much more deeper into development. But I don't know, what do you think? Do you think of them cancelling this Tiana series? Do you think it's a good move, a bad move? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow and subscribe, and I shall see you guys soon. Later.